Bilchik. I'm delighted to be joined by Shiraz Oken. He's both a friend and an expert in the digital transformation space. So, Shiraz, so appreciate you joining me to talk about the future of the workforce. And what exactly is digital transformation?
Nadia, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and excited to talk about my topic that I feel very passionate about. So, digital transformation is actually not new. A digital transformation is basically refers to the capabilities and the tools and the processes that organizations use in order to manage their organization in a much more integrated way. So even though today the concept of digital has become really popular, I was already doing digital transformations as early as 2005. Um, just the level of integration that you get today wasn't possible in those days. We used a lot of SAP and Oracle integrated technologies. So that combines back the front and the back office of an organization. So what that basically means is you were able to integrate your customer service with your sales and marketing, with your HR, and with your operations. So there was a way to kind of integrate how data flowed. And what we had to do in those days was to really help to maximize the value from the technology by making sure that the organization could really use it in a way that kind of delivers the value. So what is the value of anything that's digital? Digital technologies increase efficiency. They increase integration. So they integrate different pieces and parts of the organization that you are unable to do normally. And it kind of increases transparency because you're able to mine data that you never could mine normally. So digital transformation, from my perspective, is really making sure that the organization can maximize the benefit from digital capabilities.
That's really where the whole workforce is going. And one of the things you and I have had lots of conversations around is the future workforce. So, do you see the entire future workforce adopting these digital technologies? And then going forward, what are some that you can see everyone will be using as we navigate an increasingly digital world?
I'm going to kind of share three things. I think any organization that doesn't have a digital roadmap and isn't looking at ways to digitize some of their processes, isn't looking at ways to optimize their use of data and even sometimes turn their data into additional offerings, to be able to have greater control over their supply chains, as we've seen with COVID-19, where a lot of organizations really didn't have that level of control, or manage their supply chains from the perspective, and I'm sure you can relate, where organizations don't want to be sitting with product or inventory, and on the other hand, they want to make sure that that product or inventory is actually available when they need it. Those things are all enabled through digital. So the digital of today really is about re-looking at your whole organization's operating model. And what we see is that there's a lot of processes that were done by people that today can be automated and can be done by machines. In addition, we have got to a point where we can develop algorithms that teach computers how to do some parts of our job, even higher order learning, where they identify risks for us before we probably would identify them, and they help to fix machines. I mean, I just came off a project where, it's a huge bakery. They were having an issue where some of their breads were burning, and in a shift you're making thousands and thousands of loaves of bread. It's a big expense. We put in electrodes, digital. We were able to identify that the power surges that were happening, and then we were able to identify what happens just before that power surge. And we taught the machine to rectify itself before the power surge actually happened. This saved this company millions and millions of dollars and prevented the scrap that was happening across shifts. So, I know you've heard of artificial intelligence. It's all about algorithms. It's about teaching machine to do a lot of things that we did. I know that you've mentioned these chatbots that we're setting up to share information. We used it a lot for COVID-19 so that people could call in and understand, how to claim certain monies, or, how to get help. So I just believe that organizations that aren't going to look at how to go digital cannot compete. And we've already seen the startups who are intrinsically digital, like, the Amazons and the, using the typical examples in Uber. Those organizations are intrinsically digital. They're digital to their core. What I've been doing is working with organizations that were not born digital, that recognize that.
Example. I'm just curious, what is an example of a company that didn't start off digital that has had to transform?
So it's the Walmarts, the Home Depots, most of the McDonald's, most organizations today. Even in manufacturing, the Raytheons and the United Technology Corporations, whether it's in industrial manufacturing or just in retail or wherever, these companies did not start off to be intrinsically digital, and most of them have recognized that they need to become more digital in order to compete. And so they've started off by focusing on how do they place their businesses online, how do they manage their supply chains, and then internally, I think a lot of people can relate to the digital aspect of communication that became so prevalent in COVID-19, where we need to look at the digital capabilities within communication. So the concept of digital extends from supply chain to communication. It can be, around sales and marketing. And the whole thing that is amazing is the ability to create a system that integrates all these different sectors, which then you can imagine it challenges our traditional organization model. Because our technology is so integrated, we have to change the way we think. We have to change our operating models. We have to change the way we structure our organizations and remove these silos that we typically had, where one function in the organization owned data, for example, one owned, financial information. Today, it is so fluid, and organizations who can do that successfully are seeing huge benefits.
So it's interesting because every company has the capability of doing this. And obviously, each organization is so unique. But if you were going to take us through a step-by-step process and the way you phrased it is, what should companies think about as they embark on this journey? And you've certainly given us a lot of ideas, but if you could summarize it for anybody who's watching this going, what she's saying is making perfect sense. What do I need to begin with? What is my thought process? What is the first step?
Nadia, the first step is actually to think 10 years out and to think about what will the world look like? What will your industry look like? What will your function look like? And what will your role look like? And to work backwards, retrospectively from there, to say what tools, processes, capabilities, what skill sets will I need in order to make sure that my company succeeds and that I'm successful. And it's very interesting that looking at it in that direction, a lot of organizations see their functions disappearing 10 years out. And it also helps them to think about what investments do they need to make. So what's actually incredible about the next step that I do with companies is something called data modeling. So we today have access to real-time data, we have historic data, and then we've got to kind of make this leap of faith that I was telling you, thinking 10 years forward, pull that together, and then determine what are the investments that we need to make as an organization, because investments in digital are not inexpensive. And if you go down a path and decide to change direction, it's not that easy. And it's, you're talking about millions of dollars down the drain. So by doing that, that data modeling, we help to conceptualize your future and then to determine what are the digital capabilities that you're going to need to enable them. And we only can deal with what we know today. So we know that digital capabilities are progressing at an absolute rapid rate, even in terms of learning. The type of virtual learning that you're able to do, you can literally go into a virtual world to learn something new today. Who knows if we're going to put microchips into people. It's going to be completely different in 10 years' time. But based on what we know today, I can then give my client direction. Now, part of it is also to prioritization, because there's so many different components. Are we focusing on their supply chain? Are we focusing on their operations, finance, accounting, in that part of the organization, sales and marketing? Where do they want to focus? Or do they just want to focus on digitizing internally on their communications to make sure that their people can work anytime, anywhere, using any device?
Shiraz Oken, who is a digital transformation expert. I will tell you, Shiraz, just listening to you, even as a professional speaker who's used to speaking in front of groups of people in person, you've made me think about, and I love what you just said, you've got to think about 10 years from now and what are you investing in. This has been superb advice and guidance, I think, any level business you're at. So just a last thought from you for people who are feeling very daunted by this process. And I know you've worked for large consulting companies and do this on a massive scale, but just last thought for really anyone to motivate you to see 10 years down the line. And I like to say this is Shiraz Oken on how to ramplify, which is ramp up your business and amplify your customer connection. And it's going to have to happen through digital transformation.
What I'm really excited about is we have introduced something called Dawn of Disruption. It's a way to help people really think about 10 years out, to think about their own situation, even to start thinking about what is next for them. And I know that there's so many people out there right now who have lost their jobs, who may not be in a very positive spirit. But I'd love to see if you have interest, if we could maybe give these people an opportunity to really start to think about the future and what could be the role that they could take that could really help to, take this world into the future. And I think it's anybody's game. I think that people should not feel disheartened. They don't feel, mustn't feel like they necessarily have to go back into the careers that they were in before. This is a wonderful opportunity to really think about the future, and maybe they're the futurists who can help us figure out how to take the world forward.
Taking the world forward. Thank you, Shiraz Oken, for sharing advice, guidance on what is the future workforce going to look like, digital transformation, and how to explore the age of disruption. Shiraz is available if you want to talk to her further. Shiraz, tell us the best way to do, because I know you've just scratched the surface, but for anyone who wants a deeper dive.
Sure. So my email address is Shiraz, SHIRAZ, at greaterimpact.com. Please reach out to me. Find me on Facebook. It would be my absolute pleasure to, just have an initial conversation, and any way I can help anybody who's looking to kind of craft a new career.
Thank you, Shiraz Oken, and thank you all for watching my conversation with a digital transformation expert.